Hi kids, welcome back. We're carrying on the mass watch of Babylon 5, which I never quite got to see in its entirety when it was on TV in the 90s. Step into the misty valleys of South Wales and discover the chilling true story behind The Ghosts of Gladstone Villa by Andrew Dexter. In a Victorian house on Cardiff Road in Bargoed, a family spent 9 years living with unexplained footsteps, moving furniture, and the haunting cries of a phantom infant. Witnesses even reported a hooded, monk-like figure believed to be tied to the medieval Benedictines who once walked the land. Blending first-hand paranormal encounters with Welsh history and folklore, this gripping account explores the thin line between the living and the dead, and the long journey toward peace for the spirits left behind. The Ghosts of Gladstone Villa by Andrew Dexter. Available now on Amazon. Dare to discover what really haunted the house. So, I'm on Season 2, Disc 2. That's episodes 5, 6, 7, and 8 of Season 2. Quite enjoying it. There are one or two episodes here that are feeling a bit... didn't keep my attention, you know what I mean? Anyway, as usual, I've made some notes because my memory is full of holes. If you're new to the channel, and let's face it, you may be, stick around. My channel is mostly geek stuff, sci-fi. Sometimes there's practical builds of models and props and things like that. Events coming up. You know, anything that basically is on my mind. It's a bit of a mixed bag, but you know, hey, 600 odd subscribers can't be wrong. And I love you all. Anyway, let's get into the episode. So episode, I'm going to call it episode 5 here. It's called The Long Dark. My notes say the following. Dwight Schultz is the guest. Dwight Schultz, beloved actor, shot to fame as Howling Mad Murdoch in the A-Team and later on as Reg Barclay in Star Trek The Next Generation. Unfortunately, in this episode, he's playing a crazy person. Typecast? Well, it's what he does best. Why he wasn't a bigger star than he actually, you know, has been. Do you know what I mean? He should have been in movies, big movies. Anyway, yeah. So the story opens with a very old ship called the Copernicus turning up at Babylon 5, and they get to a cryo chamber where there's two sort of cryo tanks, whatever, with people in. The one has a dead person, the other one has a woman in it, and that's very similar to an episode from Blake 7. I can't remember the name of it, but they find two cryo things, and the one is dead, the other one is still alive. So that's probably a sci-fi trope. Thankfully, the one that's still alive is a hot woman, right? The Randy Doctor, Stephen Franklin, is at it again. He always seems to be like searching for love, and where better than to ask out your patients, you know. Yeah, he basically gets a snog with this woman mere hours after telling her that her husband's just died. He was like, "Oh, let's get close," and then they go to kiss, and then like he enjoys it for like a second or two, and goes, "No, that wouldn't be right." And he's like, "You're the one who's chatting her up." Okay. Yeah, and it's heavily implied that she stayed overnight in his quarters. I'm fairly sure he wouldn't have been doing that if this had been some kind of lizard alien. No. Yeah, I'll extend the bedside manner. You can stay at my place. Dwight Schultz, what's the word? Dwight Schultz, let's just say, he just says the word bastard in the middle of a rant, which is a rant. I'm having a rant over. He says the word bastard, and that is probably the strongest expletive we've heard so far in the show. There are two sections then. There's two monologues. There's Dwight Schultz's monologue. His character is called Amos, and he has a conversation with Garibaldi. And then the next one is the hot lady, Mariah, with the doctor, and she does a little monologue about her life as well. So Dwight Schultz is up first, and he really turns it on. You can see some proper trained acting there. It's not over the top, and he goes from happy to sad to am I crazy, am I not crazy, I'm very upset, and yeah, he knocks it out the park. Mariah's monologue is not as deep as his. She's probably not the kind of actress who chews up scenery like Dwight Schultz, but you know, what is it? Yeah, basically, you know, she's very confused about what to do, and the doctor is obviously like, well, you can stay with me, that kind of thing. Yeah, all right, mate. That was a funny observation. Basically, they know there's some kind of invisible creature roaming around which arrived on this ship, and so they go to the main command deck, and Sheridan, old Boxleitner, comes up to Ivanova and goes, we've got to get down to the storage bay, wherever they think this thing is, and bring out the heavy weapons. And she just goes, oh, these, and just pulls them. Like these heavy weapons, these rifles are just hanging around on the bridge, which they never do. You know, you expect that. I thought the scene would end with, and break out the heavy weapon. She's like, got it, and off they go. But she just kind of goes, oh yeah, here, have a rifle. And you're like, where did they come from? It was a little bit kind of quick. Oh, I just happen to have these lying around. What else? Yeah, the creature is CG. It's invisible, but you can see its rough shape through animated lightning and stuff. Very much reminiscent of the id monster from Forbidden Planet, I want to say 1940, around that time. And it does, at some point, its face looks like, you know, multiple flaps. It looks a little bit like a Demogorgon, but only in a split second. Yeah, so once that creature is destroyed, the doctor says to Mariah, she's like, oh, I don't know what to do in my life now because I'm 100 years in the future, like Buck Rogers. And he goes, well, you know, we could find a place. I know things moved a bit fast, but you could stay with me. I could work something out. And you're like, oh, for goodness sake. And then she blows him off, but not in a good way. She's like, no, I'll see you later. And he's like, damn, unlucky in love again. I'll have to ask someone else. And there's a brief mention of the Shadow Realm at the end of that episode. Not a bad episode, to be honest. Right, this is an interesting episode 6 is called Spider in the Web, and I mean, looking at the cast, especially the guest stars, I thought, oh, this is going to be a cracking episode, and I found it boring as heck. First guest star, Adrienne Barbeau from Escape from New York and a few other things. She's just great. I mean, I'll try and avoid the obvious thing about Adrienne Barbeau, except at least in this episode, she has high necklines, right? But she is a good actress. Again, like Dwight Schultz, I think she should have been a much bigger star. She plays a character called Amanda Carter, and she's doing something. Now, this is where it didn't grab my attention. It's some whole storyline about colonizing Mars or making colonization on Mars better or something. But I think the fact that her name is Carter might be a little in-joke of reference to John Carter of Mars. Hand acting, yeah. So basically the villain of the piece turns up and you see this flight case kind of open, goes like this, and a hand comes out and the hand's going, and it just goes on for far too long. And it's like, yeah, I've never seen a hand overdoing the acting before. And that hand belongs to Michael Beck, known to most people from The Warriors. He played Swan, and he was also in the Olivia Newton-John film Xanadu. In this, obviously he's a little older than he was in The Warriors. His hair's very grey, much like this, but he looks like a young or a middle-aged Henry Winkler. He's playing it like very stiff because he's a kind of cyber zombie, not quite a robot, not quite a zombie type thing. What else happens? Yeah. So the third guest star is James Shigeta as Taro Isogi. Now, he's an Asian actor who I'll have to look up in the IMDb, but he's been in loads of things. He comes across as this sort of warm, dependable, fatherly figure.
And you recognize him in loads of things. He's one of those actors who, I guess, gets a lot of work and isn't kind of ever cast as the leading man, but he's always there, and you go, oh, that guy whose name I can't remember. So that's James Shigeta, and he does which is becoming a bit of a trope in Babylon 5, where he says to Talia Winters, over dinner? And you go, this is just the chat-up line on B5. It's just call it, maybe we could discuss this over dinner. It turns out he's some kind of mentor to her. But when he gets, spoilers, he gets killed, he hits the deck, and Talia goes to sort of, oh, no. And she's like really over familiar with him. It's like, have you two been closer than just mentor and student? A little bit over familiar. So Michael Beck's character, he has been brought back to life through something called the Lazarus Project, which sounds very tropey. I'm sure there's lots of Lazarus projects, because obviously Lazarus came back from the dead in the Bible. His character's name's Abel, by the way. Abel Horn. Over dinner. So, yeah, he was a cyber zombie for the Free Mars organization, activists or whatever. And at the very end, Sheridan asks Talia, did she get any sort of messages and pictures from his mind? And she covers up for the Psychor. She's hiding something. What else here? Oh yeah, basically right at the very end, the Free Mars people are being kind of Abel, the bad guy, was operated by some shady person on Mars, and you just see a computer desk, and you just see this much of a face sort of talking, which, because Michael Beck was in The Warriors, in that film they regularly cut to a female DJ, and you'd only see that much of her face going, well, bappers, the Warriors are still free. And you're like, this has got to be a throwback to that. You just see the face of a woman talking, the bottom half of the face, basically. So I think that's a throwback to the Warriors, a little in-joke as well. Right, episode 7, Soulmates. Oh, as I say, that previous one didn't really grab my attention despite the good guest cast. Episode 7, Soulmates. A guy called Matthew Stoner turns up. Nice. He's Talia's ex. I'm really enjoying Talia Winters, by the way. Not only is she flipping gorgeous, but she's consistently a very... she's an emotional actor. She breaks into tears occasionally, quite a bit. But she's not hammy with it, and she's believable. And obviously I know from latter years that she doesn't stay much longer in the series, and they replace her with another Patricia Tolman's Lita character. But I like Talia. I think she's great. And God, talk about good looking. Blimey, Charlie. Okay, so there's a B story here, which is quite funny. So Talia's ex turns up, and he's psychic, but saying he's not psychic. The B story is a comedy story. It's basically Londo's 3 wives turned up, and he's managed to be able to wangle with the Emperor of Centauri that he can actually divorce 2 of them and keep the one. And they're all horrible. I mean, they're sort of obnoxious and bitchy and stuff. There is a really fit one, the 3rd one, who's very seductive, but she's also kind of like seduces anybody she can get her hands on. So she may be hot, but she's not that kind of loyal, if you know what I mean. But there's lots of hamminess there. The one wife, I forget her name, but goodness me, she's English, and she's very tiresome with her bitchiness. Still, also a guest star, Carol Stroiken. Carol Stroiken is a 7-ish foot tall guy who most people would know from the Raul Julia Adams Family films. He played Lurch. He also had a guest spot as the personal assistant to Luaxwana Troy, Deanna Troy's mum in Star Trek Next Generation. But it's nice to see him in a speaking role, because I think he's Hungarian. I could be wrong. But he gets a little thing about it. So he's like a antiques expert. Yeah, now this is getting a little bit... I think someone must have told Babylon 5 to sauce it up a little bit in the second season, because it's heavily implied that, well, the Londo basically says to his two of his wives, you know, let's sort this out kind of in the bedroom. And it's like, oh, all right. And then someone says, well, what about the other wife? And then there's like between 3 or 4 people. And they sort of hinted at that we're going to sort of sort their differences out and prove who's the best wife all in the same night, which is a bit saucy. There is a scene where the Centauri have an event where they all have to have bare feet, and the only person who wears shoes or boots is Jakar. And I can't remember what Londo says to him, but he winds him up, and Jakar goes and storms off like a camp, you know, offended woman, even though he's not a woman, you know what I mean. That's quite funny. Talia wanted to leave, and then she doesn't. Oh yeah, this is she basically, in order to expose her ex-husband, she pretends that she wants to leave Babylon 5 and leave the Psi Corps. Then she says she doesn't and stuff, and they kind of maneuver him into a corner and trap him and catch him out. Then you see Jakar in his nightgown again, and when you see him in his nightgown stirring a drink, usually in his quarters, you know he's just been on the nest, as my friend used to say, over dinner. And yeah, it's heavily implied that he has had a tryst, shall we say, with the hot wife, the hot one of Londo's 3 wives, who he's been basically, he'll do anything to, you know, get at Londo anyway. So that's a little bit... But there is an interestingly weird and sweet end to Londo's dilemma, where the most bitchiest of his wives, the English one, she gives Londo a blood transfusion and says to the doctor, look, just don't tell him. Just don't tell him that I gave him the blood transfusion, because I may not like him, but I don't want him to die. I've got a little bit of respect for him. And in a kind of weird karmic payback, because Londo doesn't know this, he was unconscious at the time, he gets rid of the deceitful hot one, plus the other one who's very smarmy and very kind of just after his cash and all that, and keeps hold of the really bitchy English one who actually did save his life. So it's like a weird kind of karma thing. And he's like, at least I know where I stand with you, which is quite sweet in a way. He's like, look, I don't know where I am with those two, but you don't like me. But I can live with that, because at least I know that you're honest. And right at the very end, oh yeah, I forgot to mention this earlier on. Delenn calls Ivanova. See, why am I not getting the names in here? Ivanova. Delenn calls Ivanova to her offices and says, I'm in it's a desperate situation. She's like, what? Turns out her hair is like everywhere. It's like a bird's nest. And, you know, it's quite a funny scene, because she's like, how do you humans sort your hair out? She's like, oh, I'll have to sort it out for you. And right at the very end, they cut back to Delenn and Ivanova, and she's like, oh, thanks for everything. And she says, oh, while I'm beginning to take on human characteristics, what are these cramps I'm having? And you're like, you know, so it's, you know, it's straying very gently into sort of a bit more grown-up territory. Final episode, number 8, is called A Race Through Dark Places. What did I think of the previous episode? It was okay. It was very, very varied. I mean, it had 2 main stories, which was the Talia's ex, the psychic guy, and Londo's 3 wives, which is okay. Now, so the final episode 8, A Race Through Dark Places, starts off with a kind of an interesting B story. It's a bit like, I used to watch episodes of TJ Hooker, you know, the William Shatner cop show, and they'd have A and a B story again. And the A story would be something serious, like a a murderer or a drug dealer or something. And then the B story would be, what can I get my wife for her birthday? Something light-hearted, right? So the B story starts off with basically Sheridan being very angry and annoyed that Earth forces are basically saying you've got to scale your quarters down into a much smaller thing or pay rent on Babylon 5. And he's like, this is unreasonable. This is not right. Weirdly, only a couple of episodes ago, he'd just moved in and he was saying that he loved the open space, but it was feeling weird and he's used to having very tight cabins because he's served on ships. Anyway, he's his big frustration is him and Ivanova, got the name right, have to look at the possibility of moving into much smaller quarters. So that's quite funny. And he even shouts, I don't give a flying f. And you're like, oh, okay. Again, maybe a hint that they're going for slightly more older audiences. Bester is back. Walter Koenig, a.k.a. Mr. Chekhov, is back as Bester. He's a good character. I find him irritating, but I think you're supposed to find him irritating. He's the villain you're supposed to love to hate. Now, I don't want to be mean to the great man himself, but Walter Koenig, completely bald on top and has to wear a syrup, and it just doesn't look convincing. There's something strange about his syrup. You know, if you're going to go syrup, you've got to get a good one. Anyway, yeah, he's quite a scary character actually. Anyway, Delenn corners Sheridan and says, now I'm looking a bit more human. I don't want to find out a bit more about humans. He's like, what have you got in mind? She goes, over dinner. Like they sort out a dinner. And obviously I know that Delenn and Sheridan end up together. So this is basically their first date. There's a little flashback to a previous episode where there was a character called Ironheart, and he gave Talia, before he died, a gift. And I think that's telekinesis kind of thing, an extra kind of psychic powers that, you know, she got to learn how to control. Makes her quite powerful. Then we cut back to the B story of the quarters. So Sheridan says, sod this, we're sleeping in the office for the night. So Ivanova is on the couch. Sheridan's got his feet up on his desk. And then just before they go to sleep, he decides to tell her two jokes, which are really, really bad. The first one is slightly political, and it says something like, how many minbari does it take to change a light bulb? And she goes, I don't know. And he says, none. They start doing it, and then they give up before the job's even finished, which is supposed to be, I think, a reference to the way they basically surrendered at the Earth Minbari War 10 years ago, which wasn't great. The second joke, knock, knock, who's there? Kosh. Kosh who? Gesundheit. Yeah, all right. Talking of which, another 4 episodes, we haven't seen Kosh at all. Linnea has showed up in a previous episode, but no Kosh. I like Kosh. I'm sure he'll turn up. Right, so Talia gets taken hostage by a bunch of activists, the psychic people who are trying to run from Psychor, and there's word that Bester is trying to track down the people who run an illegal railroad on Mars and concentration camps. Basically, they're trying to sort of keep these psychic refugees away from Psychor, which is drawing parallels to, you know, the sort of railroads that would, you know, back in the days of slavery in the States, you know, secret railroads to sort of free slaves and get them out of harm's way kind of thing. So there's, you know, a little bit of politics there. My name's Ben Elton. Good night. So there's that. There's a mass murder of refugees. All these refugees get gunned down, and then they don't because it was a psychic illusion. And I hate these fake outs. You kind of go, all right. And right at the very end, Talia turns up. Ivanova is just about to get to sleep in her own place because Sheridan has managed to wangle the rent being paid by rediverting military funds to the rent. And he's like, look, if I'm going to go to war, I want to be able to have a good night's sleep in my own damn bed. So, you know, he's sorted that one out. So she finally gets to sleep in her own bed. She goes to lie down. There's a knock at the door, bing bong, and Talia is there with wine and 2 glasses. Over dinner? So they just have a chat. She's like, I need to apologize, and blah, 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 blah. And they sit down, and the end credits roll. Now, I don't know too much, but I have heard that there's an inference there that Talia and Ivanova do actually end up having dinner, kind of getting together, or briefly, or something like that. And that's it. That wasn't a bad episode. So there we go, episodes 5, 6, 7, and 8 of season 2, Babylon 5. If you've seen it, do you remember any of those episodes I talked about? What did you like? What did you not like? I do quite like the mining of stars from the past. The guest stars, particularly Adrienne Barbeau. It's nice to see her in it, and Dwight Schultz was absolute legend. So that was good fun. I am filming this right now on a Sunday afternoon before my eye operation. I know I keep going on about it and getting the one eye sorted, but I don't know when this is going to be out, but rest assured, if you're watching it, hey, I got there, kids. Anyway, that's all for now. I'm going to do some videos on my Marvin the Paranoid Android. Look at this. Look at this. Look at that. This is a really nice poster by Grant Perkins of the BBC Hitchhikers lot, and I've had it sort of framed. There's Marvin there. Somewhere in this picture, Grant has put the number 42, and you have to find it. I could not find it after looking at it for ages. He finally told me where it is, but I'm not spoiling it. Anyway, I've got a model kit of Marvin, a 3D printed resin kit, and I will be getting onto assembling that as soon as I get the right paints and things I need to make a decent job of him. So look out for that. Plenty of other stuff coming up, including many videos probably about the Barry Cardin Collector Con in May this year, which I will be comparing. Lots of Doctor Who guests and Red Dwarf and other good stuff. It's shaping up to be an awesome event. That should be good fun. So stay with me, and whatever condition my eyesight is in, I will be back very soon. And that's it. Take care now. Bye bye then.